Since 1999, more than 511,000 students have been exposed to gun violence in school, as said by Teresa Vargas in an article by the Washington Post. What does this number actually look like? Oftentimes, it's very easy to spit out some big number that no one fully comprehends the magnitude of. If we divide the number by the number of years that have passed since then, that gives us a whopping 13,522 students affected by gun violence each year. That's roughly 1,127 a year, or 38 students a day. Not to mention all the secondhand effects of those affected by gun violence. All the mothers who won't ever get to hold their child, the siblings that will be missing someone to fight over the remote with, or the grandparents who have to go through the pain of outliving their grandchild. While I can't even begin to imagine what these parents and all others are feeling, I can use my voice and rights to change and hopefully solve the gun dilemma once and for all. I believe there should definitely be restrictions on firearms in America due to the rise of gun violence in America and lack of education around guns. Guns in America have caused more than enough issues for the general population. It appears as though every day there's either a threat of a mass shooting or there actually is one. If we just fix all the issues prior to the guns being purchased, it could save the lives of so many. Placing gun restrictions would be the next positive step due to the rise of gun violence in America and the lack of education surrounding guns. As active members of society, we should all be able to see the issues surrounding guns. We need to act on reforms due to the rising in multitudes of gun violence. The events of the Columbine shooting mark an important turning point in mass shootings, particularly school shootings. The Columbine shooting was the first televised/recorded school shooting. As said by Emily Shapiro of ABC News, the Columbine shooting was a shooting done by 2 students, killing 13, not including the individual shooters themselves. The principal of Columbine at the time, Frank DeAngelo, said, "One of the biggest flaws from that day was the lack of policy. The police officers could not go back inside to the school to face the shooter, but instead had to wait out for SWAT and secure the perimeter." In his interview with ABC News, according to DeAngelis, policemen did exchange fire with the shooters outside of the school. However, they did not pursue the gunmen due to following protocol. After Columbine, they did change the protocol, and there should no longer be any time wasted on waiting for anyone. The radio show done by Penn State asked several doctors their experience with gunshot patients and what their experiences are on them. One in particular, Dr. Zafar A. Qasim, brought up the topic of life after the trauma, and I had never thought about what would happen after gunshot trauma. He recalls a particular incident with a patient named Andy who had survived a pretty gnarly rifle shot to the abdomen, and after years of rehabilitation and countless amounts of surgery, he stormed into the hospital to demand why they had saved his life. His life had been terrible since the day they saved him. Not only does life change from then on during the trauma, but after, it's something that I hadn't even considered. According to the article written by Jose Luis Magna, the U.S. has the U.S. world's highest rate of firearm deaths in comparison to the wealthy nations. Likewise, that's ironic because we are a country that advocates for our gun rights, yet where are the restrictions on them? Around 2 months ago, I brought up the idea of familiarizing myself with guns. It's something that I've always wanted to do, and while I don't own any guns now, it is a topic I would further look into. While attending a free class that is hosted several times a week, all week long, is strictly for beginners, I truly witnessed how irresponsible people can be. 2 of the gentlemen that attended the class with me had purchased guns and hadn't had the slightest clue about the law surrounding their guns or many of the safety requirements surrounding their guns. Since that day, I understood exactly why accidents happen. With guns, there is no powerful law forcing people into knowledge. A lot of irresponsible people own guns, and while I'm not saying this is what attests to the high number of gun violence victims, that is part of the accident surrounding guns. By the nature of this speech, I don't want anyone to believe I am anti-guns. While I don't agree with every single person who has guns and obsesses over them, almost making them some sort of sport or hobby, I do believe gun ownership is every capable person's right. I'm not anti-guns, I'm anti-lax gun reforms. I do understand why people may argue that it is a God-given right to own guns freely. I agree with them that we all do have that right, just like how we have the right to drink and own cars and take out loans, etc. However, with these freedoms comes rules and regulations. The more dangerous the right, the more regulated it should be. I will use the example of marijuana. In Florida, medical marijuana is now legal. While many people were against that right, they are more comfortable with the right now that there is extreme regulations. For example, medical marijuana must stay in the approved container the entire time. There has to be proof of the need of the medical marijuana, and no one can drive while under the influence of medical marijuana. I want this speech to not go unheard by all of you. Don't just walk out of this room and act like this speech was nothing more than another task accomplished today. If any of my words moved you, even in the slightest, go out there and do something about it. Find your nearest voting center and vote on a reform, express your feelings on social media, and donate to one of those victims' families. But most importantly, spread education. Spread the word. Don't just relax in your seat when someone speaks about guns. Ask the intrusive questions on whether they actually know how to properly store it and how to safely use the firearm. With the rise of gun violence and the increasing number of uneducated carriers, it's only right we as a society take the necessary steps to ensure our safety and the safety of others. We must do our part to ensure change surrounding guns. Let's have a moment of silence for the victims of the shootings shown in the gun made of different shootings over the years.